she and their 12-year-old son had to leave a lavish $10,000 a month rental, and she can no longer afford designer clothes or cover essential expenses like car insurance and weekend trips.
These women were married to some of the biggest names in rap. They had the houses, the cars, the life. Then the marriage ended, and everything went with it. 5 women, 5 very different stories, but all of them ended up in the same place. And one of them, you would never guess, had to beg for grocery money. Kellis, ex-wife of Nas. Most people remember Kellis for Milkshake. What a lot of people don't know is what was happening behind the scenes while that song was everywhere. She and Nas got married in 2005, and for a while, it looked like one of those real hip-hop love stories people root for. Then, in 2009, she filed for divorce while she was pregnant with their son, Knight. And what came out in those court filings was a completely different picture. Kellis told the court she had run out of money completely. She said her entire survival was depending on whatever Nas decided to pay for at any given moment. And if he didn't want to cover something, it simply didn't get paid. She was pregnant, her income had dried up, and she said he had let them lose their shared home too. Now, Nas had his own financial problems at the time. He was dealing with over $6 million in tax liens and debts around the same period, but that didn't make Kellis's position any less real. The divorce got ugly fast with fights over child support that dragged on for years.
A fraction of it, that'd be fantastic. Who wouldn't want it? I mean, you know, he sat in the deposition, sworn in. This man, it's comical because it's that ridiculous. Said, I don't know what bank I'm with. I don't know who does my banking. I don't know where my checks come from, and I don't know how much.
Kellis has since rebuilt her life through music, cookbooks, and her food business. But going from a woman who sold millions of records to someone who couldn't cover her own bills while carrying a child, that part of the story doesn't get talked about enough. Kim Scott Mathers, ex-wife of Eminem. Kim Scott and Marshall Mathers go so far back that calling it complicated would be an understatement. They grew up together, they were on and off for years, got married in 1999, divorced, then somehow got married again in 2006, and divorced again in 2007. The marriage was messy in every direction you look, and the public story was mostly whatever Marshall put in his lyrics. What happened to Kim financially after all of it is where things get real. She received a settlement of around $475,000 to $500,000 plus child support after the final divorce. Used most of that to buy homes in Michigan and was, on paper, not in bad shape. But the reality that followed included unemployment claims, addiction struggles, rehab, legal issues, including a DUI, and by 2015, things had gotten so dark that she reportedly attempted to take her own life. It came out in interviews that Eminem had been quietly helping her financially over the years, including what some reports describe as a home-related loan of around $600,000.
Kim, what about financially? Marshall did help, or did take care of you financially?
Yeah, Marshall does. Marshall pays for child support, and he is very financially, thank God for, he does his part as far as the financial.
Okay,
Her net worth today is estimated around $2 million, which sounds fine until you consider the empire she was adjacent to. She went from being the woman Eminem built half his catalog around to scraping by in ways that don't match that image at all. Krista Joyner, ex-wife of Exhibit. Most people haven't heard Krista Joyner's name outside of the context of this divorce, but the details that came out in 2026 made people pay attention. She and Exhibit got married in 2014, separated in 2021, and share a son who was born in 2010. What started as a private split turned into a very public financial argument. Krista went to court asking for $30,000 a month in total support, $9,000 for child support, and $21,000 for spousal. Her argument was that she and their son had to leave the $10,000 a month rental they had been living in, could no longer afford designer clothes or cover basic things like car insurance, and that her whole lifestyle had collapsed since the separation. separation.
Exhibit's estranged wife, Christina Joyner, is pushing the court to raise her financial support to $30,000 per month. She's asking to boost her child support to $9,313 monthly and her spousal support to $21,380 monthly. Christina argues that her current lifestyle has suffered since they split. She and their 12-year-old son had to leave a lavish $10,000 a month rental, and she can no longer afford designer clothes or cover essential expenses like car insurance and weekend trips.
Now, Exhibit's response to all of this is where it gets complicated. He told the court he earns about $66,000 a month, but owes over $1.3 million to the IRS, and the state of California in back taxes, carries $1.4 million in personal debt and another $2 million in business debt. He was already paying around $5,000 a month in temporary child support and pushed back hard against ongoing spousal payments. So this is not a situation where someone left a rich man and got nothing. It is a situation where the man was also in serious financial trouble, and neither of them was in a great position. Tashara Simmons, ex-wife of DMX. If there is one story on this list that puts everything else in perspective, it is Tashara Simmons. She and DMX were childhood sweethearts. They met when they were kids, built a life together, got married in 1999, had 4 children, and she stayed by his side through things that would have made most people leave a long time ago. DMX went through multiple bankruptcies, racked up around $1.7 million in IRS debt, spent money as fast as it came in, and his addiction and legal problems were constant. Tashara didn't just watch this happen from a distance. She was right there in the middle of it. And when the marriage finally ended in 2014, she walked away financially and personally depleted. An IRS tax lien hit both of them after the divorce, which meant the government's problems followed her out of the marriage too.
Simmons knows betrayal all too well. Her marriage to the late hip-hop artist DMX was filled with it. But it is the triumphs that she shares in her latest book and why she had to die to oneself to find true peace.
In a 2026 Complex interview, she talked openly about being completely broke coming out of the marriage, saying she stayed as long as she did because she was trying to save him. DMX passed away in 2021 with no will and a pile of debts, so there was nothing to inherit either. She has since written books, spoken publicly about her recovery, and rebuilt her life. But the cost of that marriage was real, and it was high. Nicole Young, ex-wife of Dr. Dre. This one is the one people really didn't see coming. Dr. Dre spent years building an empire that most people in the music industry can only dream about. Beats by Dre, Aftermath Entertainment, Interscope, and then the sale of Beats to Apple in 2014 put his net worth somewhere between $820 million and $1 billion. Nicole Young was married to him for 24 years, from 1996 to 2021, and when the divorce was filed, people assumed she would walk away with a bag that matched his. Then the actual court documents came out. Nicole reported only about $1 million in her bank accounts at the time of filing, while listing monthly expenses that included $42,000 on security alone. Her argument was that Dre had controlled essentially all of his wealth and that she needed massive spousal support. Some reports put her initial asks between $300,000 and $2 million a month. Dre countered by accusing her of taking around $353,000 from his studio business without authorization. The settlement she eventually received was $100 million, $50 million upfront and $50 million to follow, plus jewelry and cars. On paper, that sounds like the biggest bag on this list. But when you stand that next to a billion-dollar empire built over 24 years of marriage, the picture changes. A woman who was the wife of one of the wealthiest men in music history, and at the time of the divorce filing, she had $1 million in her accounts. That tells you everything about who was holding the financial power in that relationship. If you know someone who needs to see this, drop it in their DMs. And if you're new here, make sure you click on one of the cards on your screen. There's a lot more where this came from.